Check out this. Wow, I have not seen one of these in the States. To me, it's a super unique Euro bike. Yeah, I mean, it has all the similarities of the bikes that we usually see here, like the Trek 5200 or probably the Specialized Roubaix, which is a similar style and type and componentry mix, but yeah, this is kind of cool. Let's check into this. It's actually in for a tune-up, so I'm going to be doing all sorts of good fun stuff between bar tape, new cables and housing, new chain, going with the wax on that, and yeah, just getting this thing up to life for this new owner. Yeah, he bought it used, and I'm not sure he realized how much of a gem this is. It's hand built, and we'll go over that in a few. And the Condor is the name of the company. Sequadra, I think if I said that right. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. But other than that, let's check this beauty out. After this. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe. Welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy on this old bike series. Yeah, we got ourselves a gem on this one. Kind of interesting, actually. I don't really know that much of this particular brand because, number one, I don't see them so much in the States. It's one of those kind of Euro niche models that trickle over. There's probably a dealer or two here and there, but it's definitely not as popular in the States that it's Specialized, Trek, Giant, you know, at Fuji, Jameis, those kinds of things. This one's a Condor. A Condor, well, it's basically made in England, handmade in England. It even has a sticker underneath the bottom bracket. We'll go with that in a little more detail when we start taking everything apart. But kind of cool to go, wow, that's actually hand built. And it has some different kind of hydroform style tubing, which is a little bit different than I'm used to. Kind of more closer to the like the Italian style, like clogos or something of that nature, of that particular style of tubing. But it has like the carbon seat stays and chain stays, which is kind of cool. Which, if you've seen in my videos, I do have a couple Lamont and Gary Fisher road bikes that have those carbon bottom and top seat tubes and chain stays, which are actually kind of cool. So yeah, being, you know, new to me, I'm digging it. The Dika is the, you know, like the little decaling here, which is part of their mix where, you know, handlebar stem, seat posts, and they also mark the seat stays, chain stays. I'm not sure if that particular carbon is actually bought from them and integrated into the actual frame itself. And the idea of having the carbon in the back is supposed to soften up the ride, so it gives you a little bit more comfort per se, kind of like that carbon feel. And then the aluminum frame on the main frame, well, number one, it's cost. As let's not be disnumbering anybody. It's like the cost of aluminum is a little bit cheaper up front, but yet it does have a property that is a lot stiffer, so it actually puts a lot more energy into your drivetrain and so forth for the bottom bracket, less flex, right? And then it has a carbon fork from Dita as well. So it has a Dita mix, and this also has the Ultegra componentry. Yeah, Ultegra brakes as well. So shifters, brakes, crankset. Well, I'll have to double check that crankset. That might be just a standard Shimano. But most case, it is Ultegra bike, which fits in the line. If you know Treks, it's going to be like that 5200 or 5.2. Then you're going to go with the Specialized Roubaix, that kind of thing. Also maybe the Fuji Roubaix as well. And the Jameis made Quest, I think. Ooh, I'm really challenging myself right now. But in any case, pretty cool little bike. I was kind of excited to get it. It's in for a tune-up with some detailing, so I'm going to do some detailing to the frame. Cables and housing, they're going to be replaced. They needed a chain, so we're going to upgrade the chain. Cassette, they wanted a wider range, so I got some used cassettes I'm going to try on. Probably one better than other just to see higher range. So, you know, keep in mind when you're doing part swaps like this, if you're going to do a larger range cassette or chainring up front or any of that kind of changing, get a new chain. It's you're gonna have to do it anyway because the chain varies the length because of the drivetrain teeth size that are different, so it doesn't match. So if you have a tighter cluster and that chain is cut to that, and you put a big cluster on there, that might cause a problem. In other words, the chain runs out of space and rips that rear derailleur right off. So if you have a set of wheels, let's say if you're really getting into it and you got another set of wheels with a different cog structure, you make sure your chain is adjusted for both of those. You can do it. It might be a little sloppier on the tighter cassette, but you know, that's when small, and you're usually not in that gear anyway. It's still going to perform fine, but you may just have 1 or 2 extra links in there. So keep that in mind. Also, this particular bike has the basic standard 1.1/8" head set, 68 bottom bracket shell threaded aluminum. So if you ever needed, or this gentleman needed to upgrade or change forks or any of that kind of nature, there's parts available, which is kind of cool. It's not too far back, and actually this is not too terribly, well, I guess it is a little older. With this particular 10-speed componentry, we're looking at late 2000s, which makes it close to 20 years old. Oh, I'm already 30 years in. I'm going to be 40 years in here soon. Yeah, I'm at 35 now. Whoa. Actually, how long I've been doing this, could almost have 2 children that actually are 21. Just kidding. Yikes. Any case, this looks like it's in a pretty immaculate shape. Whoever had it before, original owner, I'm probably assuming this, it's in really good shape in the sense that not a huge lot of scarring, was never used as a campus bike, has a fulcrum wheel set, which are really decent wheel sets. I mean, and looking at the rim wells on them, which is where the braking surface is, it's still pretty flush, straight up and down. You can take a little ruler there and you see if you let concave in there. The more it gets pronounced, the more where that rim is seen. And at some point, I've seen them to the point mostly like on mountain bikes and so forth, where that rim well is given away where it'll start to crack. That's for like absurd amount of use. But in any case, the brake pads are still good on this. So yeah, another funny little note on this one here is the braking is opposite. So they cabled it, which I'm going to cable it the other direction. Reason being is Euro style. Something there, the right is rear is left and left is right. I don't know, whatever. The braking's backwards. So they drive on the different side of the road too. So I guess we're the numbnuts that are trying to figure this out, right? Because we don't do metric here, but all the bikes are yeah, welcome to the world of bike mechanics. It's so confusing. You know, we have metric tools, but if you go work on your car, good luck. Get that adjustable wrench out, right? So the cables need to be swapped back. And also another person or individuals that might want their cable switches, motorcycles and motocross, they have those, the left brake is rear and the right brake is front. So unless it's been changed for them, I think that's pretty standard. I've had several people do that before in the past because they're into motorcycles and get into cycling and they're like, I'm going to kill myself if I don't switch these over because I can't mentally switch them. So we've done that. Not a big deal. You can still do that today. It's just hydraulic lines to be switched to the other side. That's the only big thing. So keep that in mind though. If you're looking for used bikes, just don't assume that rear brake is the right hand. Any case, long story short, new bar tape on this guy. Probably going to clean up these shifters. They seem pretty good, but I still probably throw them in ultrasonic cleaner to make sure any kind of gunk is taken out of there. This particular componentry, the 10-speed Ultegra, that's a workhorse, is a step above the 6500 Shimano Ultegra. They really, you know, one of those things is where they trickle down that technology from Dura-Ace to Ultegra. They've worked out a couple years in the Dura-Ace market for the 10 speeds, and you know, time it gets to Ultegra and 105, they usually, not all the time, usually have most of the bugs worked out. So in this particular case, the bugs are worked out. So without further ado, let's just dive into this and kind of check into the little unique parts. Also, the headset was mentioned to be crunchy on this one, so we'll pull that apart and see how the bearings are and clean those. And also we'll inspect the bottom bracket bearings too when we take that crankset to be actually cleaned. But yeah, this is kind of a new one, so it's kind of exciting, you know. It's like one of those things. And with the detailing, we'll probably do the polishes on it from Adams, get that paint to best condition, then we'll final up with a ceramic coating with lithium ceramic slam and make this thing just pop, 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 pop. Yeah, it's a good thing you don't have to pay insurance, on bikes. I mean, you can in a way, but they're not going to go by color because, red bikes, red cars. You ever heard that? I'm sure it's probably not true. In any case, let's tear into this guy. So I'm going to pop the front wheel. I'm going to be doing a fitting with this individual when he comes to pick up the bike, but I'm going to make sure the cables in the housing are going to be long enough. Right now, they look like they're long enough for the lift of the handlebar, but this is a lower profile position. We're going to flip the stem over and see if it fits, and if not, we may need to switch out. This particular stem is not the original because it says Niners, so that's a whole different bike company. So this got switched at some point to fit an individual. Lower profile design. Downward direction usually means they either raced or a little more athletic or whatever the case may be. And this tape job is not the prettiest. They will definitely fix that up. And usually, note to self, when you're bar wrapping, you want to stop where the decals start. You don't want to overlap them. That doesn't look right. In any case, but yeah, that's what we're going to be doing here. And we'll do probably a flip the stem, make sure the cables and the housing are long enough for that when he comes and picks up the bike. With my tune-ups, I provide an included fitting if need be, because a lot of times people haven't not been fitted to their bike, and especially in this case, he just bought it used, and he's having me do the whole magic treatment on it. So we want to make sure it's dialed. The size of the frame is pretty much spot on for the height of this guy, but we're talking about, I want to make sure that like the sim adjustments, seat adjustments, all those kinds of things. So off for the front, onto the rear. Here we want to knock it down. Oh. Here we want to knock it down to the smallest cog, so we're going to knock it out. So the reason being is getting that derailleur out of the way so the wheel can drop out. Oh wait, yeah, it's the opposite side. Oopsies. Release the brake here. That opens up the calipers and do the quick release. And that should hopefully help the wheel to drop out. This gives me an opportunity to kind of inspect. These are kind of fun. These are a sealed bearing, but there's a little Allen key here. You unscrew that, and then you can tighten this plate or loosen what you need to do to loosen or tighten the hub. So it's kind of like a lock nut type deal, but they're not using a cone and a lock nut. They're just using the cone or where the race is rolling up at the bearing as the actual lock nut by tightening with the bolt there. So kind of cute little trick. And these have almost their own duck call to them as well. Finally get to wear shorts. It's been so cold, and now finally we got some temperatures that makes the shop in the 70s. Can't complain. So here we use our chain whip and our lock ring removal. Standard for 8, 9, 10, and 11s. Some 12s might get a little weird, but and this is interesting. Okay. Shimano componentry, Campanoli lock ring, should be the same size, and it's loose. It's oh, okay. If that's a Shimano cassette, we're switching out the cassette anyway, so that's a good thing. Let's take a look. What is going on? Okay, so Campanoli lock ring. All right. Can't be a Campanoli. Well, hold the phone here. Huh. Okay, all right. For a second there, I thought it may be a Campanoli Casfriha body, which we're going to have a little conversation. It looks like Ultegra. I have to double check that. So the Campanoli lock ring, and it's keyed. Yeah, it's keyed like Ultegra. It's just the deeper grooves Ultegra, like the 10-speed. So I think we'll be okay. Maybe we'll have to dive into that. But anyway, we'll clean this needler's case. Yeah, just in case we still need it. And yeah, we will clean that free hub body up. It's a little bit different design. You kind of see the cut-out indentations on these guys. It's one of those things they try to remove as much material as possible. And also, they went to deeper groove cuts on cassettes. Reason being is they're seeing notching. You still see some here from the chain rings of the cassette cutting into it. They needed something a little bit deeper so you don't shear the whole thing out. So on the 10 speeds on, they did a little deeper cut on those. So that's an interesting little tidbit fact of tech wisdom of weirdness. But we'll get these cleaned up. So I'm going to be putting a new chain on there, so I basically just need to take this one off. And since it's going to be possibly a different cluster, well, it's going to need to be a different cluster size on there, we're not going to, yeah, we're basically just going to be pitching this and not using it to measure. All right. This seemed a little long, so we're probably doing a shorter version of that on the new one. And I mean, it's Ultegra and it has a long cage there, so this individual doing a bigger cog set is not going to be too problematic. What's going on here? Oh, weird. I'm just getting all sorts of weird vibe with this guy. Give it. It's supposed to be just slotted in there. Anyway, yeah. We'll get some pliers on that. Give it a good look. There we go. And this does have a replaceable derailleur hanger, which is a good thing. So if he does get any boo-boo-ish situations, and it looks very similar to the Cannondale one, so probably okay. What we got going on here? It's like the frayed part got caught up in the lock nut, so we'll take care of that. Jockey pulleys look good. Actually, they look fairly new, actually. So this derailleur either is new or the jockey pulley is new, but that'll clean up really well. This one has a band clamp. Well, it's called a band clamp because it's actually a braze-on front derailleur. So the derailleur mounts to that there. So one of those things that gives you diversity a little bit easier. So there's several different sizes of these, of course, and you can get fancy ones with carbon, that kind of deal. And see if this one has that. Oh, that doesn't have a cable problem, so we're good. And this is a double here. All right, so we'll do the brake here for the rear, and we'll also pop the front. These look like they're in pretty condition. No Ultegras, which the 10-speed that match the actual group. So that little cassette may be just one of those weird conundrums where they lost the lock ring, which anyway. But looking at the brake pads, you see these lines. Those are kind of groove wear indicator lines. They also help shedding materials or whatever. But also it's a easy way to visually see if your brake pads are in good condition. These look like they still have a lot of meat left onto them, but I do clean these off with a little bit of sandpaper to get any kind of that glaze and also any kind of contaminants out. So when it has the rim brake, it has a clean connection for as much as it can. And when I clean these, also with ultrasonic cleaner, I flush the pivots here with a Tri-Flow Superior Lube, as well as the bolt for the adjusting and also the lock bolt there and the quick release. So fancy little guy here. Yeah, pretty nice. All right, let's do a little jibber jabber. Looks like they had a little sleeve here, which is kind of cool to aid the cable from going through. That's probably supposed to go through the frame. Like so. I don't know where it went, but we'll figure that out. And this cable guide, I popped these so we can get everything cleaned underneath. Also the cable guide, we want that clean because, you know, cables rub up against it, and that one actually has a bracket on there, so I want to keep track of that. Go find my cable guide. Found it. I want to do some jibber jabber on the bottom bracket here. This is, oh, it's not Ultegra. It is This is a FCR 700, so it's kind of like a step down. They don't mark these as, it's kind of like below 105-ish, and it's also compact because it's a 50 chainring up front, and I believe a 30, 39, 35, something like that. We'll have to look at that. But reason I want to talk about this is it has external bearings, which are on the outside, obviously, and we have this guy here. This is a fixed position, so it goes all the way through, and this is the locking bolts, and you want to do quarter turns till they loosen up all the way, so you're relieving the clamp equally, so you're not getting some weird stress. Not that it was too much of an issue, but it's just kind of a professional thing you do with stem bolts and seat posts and seats and all that. So once that's loose, there's a little plastic thing in there, and also this adjuster cap. So this little fancy tool is nice. It's alloy and it has the little hook here, called the hook, like Peter Pan. It goes on up in this groove, and if you can see it right, it pops this little thing which engages. It's a little too wide for this. What's weird? What's going on here? It's released all the way? Too many things in my hands. In this particular case, I have to get my spectacles. In addition to, that tool seems to be too wide for this clamp position. You can use a flathead screwdriver, but you just need to get in there and pop that whole piece up. What that does is releases the pin. It doesn't want to budge. So the alternate way to do it is just unscrewing these bolts out all the way. And remember, there's a little washer in there. Make sure you don't want to lose that. That guy, just like I lost it. Found it. And you do the other side. And I want to show you the other side. Oh, there it is. It's popped out. We'll just take these out all the way and clean them and show you. There's this little guy right here. See that little pokey thingy? That goes inside the actual slot here. And I better find my spacer or washer. What? Side doesn't seem to have one. I'll have to go find one for this guy. Yeah. Well, in that case, this slides right off. And that little pokey thing fits in this little hole right here. The idea is when you put it back together, it lines up with that hole, and you press that plate down, then you know you're far enough in to lock down the bolts at 12 to 14 Newton meters. Apparently the stamping got washed off, but that's what it is anyway. And once you get to this point, this should just, whoop, yep, like that, slides right out. And that's your crankset integrated one piece, or basically it's a two-piece. And then this is where you actually can feel the bearings. And you want them smooth, but kind of like a sticky smooth. You don't want them like super smooth, and you don't want any grinding. No grinding at all. Grinding, you save that for the dance floor. This particular one, you want it smooth with kind of a tack to it. Reason being is this is a load point where it's it takes a lot of abuse, and you want it to be, it'll be smooth when you're rotating your cranks, but it's one of those things that if it's too, like, so you spin your cranks and go zzz, like that, that means there's almost no more grease in there, which is not gonna do you any good favors at all. But the smooth, sticky smooth, that's a good way to put it. Sticky smooth, it's a sticky smooth. But yep, those should be fine. I'll just wipe them down and clean them, clean this area here. But I want to show you something really cool while we're down here. So when you're talking about handcrafted bikes, you always find these little I would say gold nuggets of gems of attention to detail. It's just, you know, like it reminds me of the Bontrager days and when they're making the frames, not the componentry stuff that it is today. That's, you know, manufacturing, whatever. But back in the day when Keith himself was welding stuff together, yeah, this is where you got the kind of thing where you got the England kind of flag over the England area there, and also Italian. These are also I think they were hand built in Italy as well, some of them. So this one says it's hand built in England. And also, if you look here, you got a little Dita stamp on both sides of the frame. This is what this is telling me, that the tubing came from the Dita manufacturing tubing, and this is welded together by the Condor, whoever's building them in the Condor in England. And they have this, the head batch is pretty cool too. We'll feature that here in a little bit. But attention to detail, it's like, you know, the higher grade welds of putting this together. Okay, so working at a bike shop for all these years and drinking the Kool-Aid from various brands, from Trek, Specialized, Giant, whoever, you know, you hear all these trickle down what they're trying to pitch at the time, right? So when Trek switched over from bonding their aluminum to welding their aluminum, after Gary Klein and Gary Fisher became on board and kind of taught them how to do it, well, there's a couple different welders. You know, custom welders, I'm assuming it's the same guy that does all the contacts, which is great. In manufacturing world, you have your A welder, your B welder, and your C welder. The ones that do, and the C welders are the newer welders. Their beads are not as clean and that kind of thing, and kind of sloppy, and that's where you'll see in welds where you won't see it on the bike is more pronounced, but like the head tube and the C tube, those are going to be your A welders, that kind of thing, and the dropouts, maybe the C welders or B welders. I'm not sure exactly, I don't remember, that brain cell left me a long time ago, but we're talking about there's different, like 3 different welders on one bike, and actually custom ones or being hand built usually means is one individual is welding it, so the consistent weld is throughout. And this particular weld looks very fluid, liquid-like, which is kind of like the Klein kind of, Gary Klein welding, which is the higher grade weld. Also, Cannondale did something similar to that. Also, Cannondale weld and ground down their beads at the earlier stages when they realized they ground down too far and wasn't a great idea, but they use that higher grade of welding, which gives you the smooth effect, and you're not really seeing that much of beading, which this particular case they probably do at some point take a little bit of a light sanding to it or a light grinder to kind of smooth out those areas too, even more so, but the weld itself is actually pretty smooth. But attention to detail, stamped lug in the bottom, decal of where it's made, and I mean, nobody's down here except for us mechanics, so it's kind of thing like this is meant for us to check out. Attention to details, so we know, or should know, or at some point think that the rest of the bike has the same level of detail, if not more, when you consider they put so much detail in their bottom bracket. Food for thought. All right, we have most of the parts off. I'll pop the shifters off here in a minute, but this is a time where I'm going to kind of cut away and we're just going to hammer on those wheels and the parts, get them all cleaned, and we'll just kind of show you the final results. But I will probably do a little extra feature of the head tube and the bottom bracket. I found something a little interesting underneath there. Not the bottom bracket bearings themselves of the cartridge, is actually the casing around it. There's a little bit of boiling up underneath the paint. And you're like, you're wondering to yourself, well, why is it boiling underneath? Well, aluminum doesn't rust, but it still has a corrosive property to it when it gets exposed to elements, especially a lot of elements. And that's why aluminums need to still be treated either like back in the day, GT would do their ball burnish finishing or clear coats or any of that nature, because if that contaminants get underneath that paint, it starts ash white underneath and kind of popping that paint up a little bit. It's not going to be, in a sense, bad to the bike itself, but I'm going to contact the owner on this particular one. It's like, okay, I found a little bit of flakiness. What I want to do is basically carve it out. It's by the bottom bracket area. You're not going to see it. and polish that area up really good. Either we'll have a polished aluminum, or I can put clear coat or try to touch it up with a little bit of red that might be similar to it. It won't be dead on. That's where, I'm not restoring, I refurbish. That's a delineated difference between what I do. But I just want to make sure that surface area corrosion is lifted and cleaned out, so it doesn't keep continuing to work its way through the rest of the paint, because it will do so. Because what it does, it opens up a gap where water and more contaminants can get in there. What's going to go in there? Well, grease and dirt and water. So dry by the cable. So that's one of those things I want to make sure we get that a good clean surface area. Kind of like when you get a mold cut off and it's like, we question that area. Let's just cut that right off. So after this, check out those parts. And anyway, so excited. Let's check this out. Oh, here we have it. So we got a cassette that we're going to be throwing on there. It's going to be a larger range, but hey, look at these brakes and shifters. Look immaculate. Even the old cassette is cleaned up. So they'll be ready if you want to switch back. And there you got your compact crank. Derailleur's still in little bits. I need to put those back together, but all shining, ready to go. And whoa, those wheels turned out pretty darn awesome. Yeah, a little bit of tweaking, nothing too bad. Wasn't really too out of true, but the ceramic coating on that matte finish looks amazing. And knowing that's going to give that extra properties of protection from UV and also water is going to be great. And onto the frame, bam! There we have it, ceramic coating. You can still say it's a little dull. That I have not wiped it down. I haven't knocked down that coating, so we're going to do that here in just a second. But there's my little patch up boo-boo. Not too bad. Once the crank's on there, you're not going to notice that whatsoever. There's a little bit of outline of the tape part, but I'm still improving on those things. But in any case, it's a lot better what it was instead of boiling up boils of corrosion underneath that paint. But yeah, this Condor is going to be amazing. So yeah, let's do the knockdown. So what I'll feel is a little bit of a tack. And after that tack is broken down from the ceramic coating, it gets really smooth, and it's going to be like, whew, like super fast, super fast and super shiny. Yes, it gives you a nice shine to it. And unfortunately today is not a sunny day, so you'll just kind of have to deal with the shop lights giving you the results here. But man, look at that black weave clear coat over that fork. Beautiful. So yeah, I got underneath so I can feel the smoothest underneath the area. And I can definitely smell the smoothest over the corrected area too. Even where there's chips, it kind of adds a little ramp effect as well. Prevention of water getting underneath that clear coat, which is what caused the damage in this little bottom bracket area. And notice there's a couple little bits too. So very kind of common areas that are high in humidity by the ocean or whatnot. But man, there we go. Awesome. Look at that shine. So let's recap. There you have it. Power of the coffee cup, right? Got extra juice and caffeine. This took me a couple days to actually get through. Needed that paint to dry and set for that touch-up area. So it kind of, in stages. That happens, and I just worked on other things or brought in other bikes for tune-ups. As you can see, my workload is definitely increasing as the season progresses, which is great. I'm going to hug all of it, considering how crappy of a year it was last year. I'll do whatever I can to take care of as many people as I have time for. But in any case, this particular frame is going to turn out to be immaculate. Still going to need to pop the headset and see if there's anything kind of squirrely underneath there. It is a little rough or dry feeling, so we'll see what comes of that. But as the componentry goes, it's pretty solid. Getting a new chain, a new bar tape, and new cables and housing. Tires are actually in order for this guy, so it's going to get some new tread as well. Even though the tires are fine on this one, he just wants to go a little bit wider tire, so a little more comfort for those longer rides. In addition to, when he comes in, I'll have a little fitting area, static fit, kind of check the leg length, seat angle, and also we're going to address the stem. So when I do the cables and housing, I got to be mindful of making sure I have extra little housing on there, so if we need to bring it up or down or otherwise, we have that extra housing to play with. Because if you cut it too short, there you got the problem of either rewrapping the bars and all that, and no mechanic has to go backwards. I always want to go forwards. So we're going to do the due diligence of getting all the parts lubed and polished and ready to go and installed, and wait for those tires to come in. And once those come in, bam, 100% ready to go and hit the road. Well, thank you for hanging out with me in the garage. I appreciate your support of the channel. Like and subscribe, of course, always really helps. But in any case, if it's beautiful in your neck of the woods, go for a ride. The details of information and what I do is underneath in the description, with also a sonic cleaner and parts and what have you. And you know, if you have any kind of tune-up tricks and tips, or know anything about this particular brand of bike you want to comment on, if you have one yourself, throw in the comments. It's a community here. That's what I'm trying to build up. So in any case, again, thanks again from the power of the coffee cup. Have a wonderful day. But before you leave, check out these pictures of the results in the sun. Hopefully there's sun, but the final results, I see a little bit of sun out there. I better get cranking. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Welcome back to Annoyed Guy Bicycles. Hang with the guy. Oh, no, not the guy. Not even close to the guy. Guy. All right.